Hey, happy Monday and welcome to HCDVCC Connects. I hope everybody has had a great week as of last week, your first full week of 2022. And I am so glad to have you here today for those who will watch the replay. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Hold on just a second there. I had to get to my banner section. All right. So I am Thesha Jenkins with the Harris County Domestic Violence Coordinating Council. And today we have an exciting guest. I'm probably a little bit biased. I'm very glad to have the guest that we have with us today. And just a reminder as to what HCDVCC Connects is all about. Our goal here is to connect systems and community members so that survivors of domestic violence can experience greater access to services and safety through collaborative efforts. And that is what the Harris County Domestic Violence Coordinating Council does, is that we collaborate with our community partners who are in the areas of victim services, crisis centers, law enforcement, healthcare providers, clergy, social services, and business owners. And so the whole idea is that if we're all talking about the same issue, that we also have the same opportunity to recognize, respond, and refer survivors of domestic violence. And here's the reality is that domestic violence is not an issue that is going to go away on its own, and it cannot only be addressed by law enforcement and crisis centers. It has to be a collaborative effort of everyone in the community. And I think that what makes today's guest so very special is that we're going to have an opportunity to talk about how to do work in a community using all of our community partners. So today we have with us Jessica Bellant. Jessica Bellant, and she is with the Bridge Over Troubled Waters in Pasadena, and she is the Education and Prevention Director. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Jessica up. Hey, how are you?
Hi, Thesha. I am doing well. How are you?
I am good. I am good on this Monday morning. So far, it has been a productive day, as we were talking about previously in our green room. Well, I want to thank you for being here today and being willing to take half an hour out of your time during lunch to share with our audience. And so let's go ahead and dive in. Now, here's the thing. The bridge has been around for over 4 decades. However, the reality is so many people have no idea about the resources that are available in their community. And I believe we have about 7 crisis centers throughout Houston and Harris County. And however, I think a lot of people still don't know about those. So take a moment to share with us a little bit about the Bridge Over Troubled Waters.
Of course. Thank you for having me today, Thesha. It's an honor to be here. So the Bridge Over Troubled Waters, we are a comprehensive crisis intervention center serving all survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, human trafficking, and individuals in our direct area here in Pasadena experiencing homelessness. So like I said, our main location is in Pasadena. We largely serve all of Southeast Harris County, but really we serve survivors from all over Harris County and sometimes in Texas in general. So like many of our sister agencies, we have a shelter. That's what we're mostly known for, is our 100-bed shelter. Right now, with many of our partners, we are almost at capacity. And so we are working with a lot of our sister agencies to get creative on housing for survivors during this time of great need. We also have a 24-hour hotline, which is in the banner below. That is how all survivors and really anyone in the community can get connected with us. So if you have a question on I'm interested in receiving counseling, or I'm interested in looking into shelter or in a different kind of housing program. If you want to know how to support a friend who might be experiencing domestic violence or sexual assault, you can call that 24-hour hotline number. That's what we're here for. So we also have, for those that don't need emergency shelter, there are many people who have experienced abuse maybe a long time ago, are currently experiencing abuse, or have a safe place to stay that still maybe want to meet with an advocate to talk about safety planning, legal advocacy, look at setting goals, look at healing. Maybe this is something that happened many years ago, but you never got to speak to a counselor about it. You never got to attend a support group. And now maybe you're interested and ready to do that. So we do have a myriad of support groups. We have individual counselors. We have licensed chemical dependency counselors too for those struggling with substance use. And then we have a play therapist as well to serve, children who've witnessed or experienced violence. So we have many different services for those that do not need immediate shelter. We also have a permanent housing program for those maybe transitioning out of shelter or need immediate housing, but not necessarily crisis shelter or emergency services. And then we, of course, have our Education and Prevention Department, which is my department. We are a small but mighty team that really do go out in the community, and we have conversations about domestic violence, sexual assault, and most importantly to us, how do we prevent these forms of violences from occurring in the first place? And how do we rally the community together? Because we cannot do this work alone. If we're really looking at changing a culture, changing social norms, that's going to take all of us working together because we really are all affected by these forms of violence. We know that through, the prevalency of domestic violence and sexual assaults. I always say in every presentation I'm in, if you have not, or if we have not experienced domestic violence or sexual assault, we know somebody who has, right? And so it's important for all of us to consider ways that we can be a part of this movement. So that's just kind of a highlight overview of all the services at the Bridge.
And that is an array of services. And I think it's so important that you highlighted that a person doesn't have to currently be in immediate crisis. It can be someone maybe 3, 5, 10, 12 years down the road who realizes, you know what, I think I need help. I'm out of that relationship, but I'm still dealing with some things. My kiddos, I think they've been impacted. And so just knowing that there are services available, whether you are in the midst of the crisis or afterwards. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And again, the 24-hour hotline is at the bottom. So please share this information and share this episode so that we could get this information out to people. So you were doing a great segue into primary prevention. I believe that a lot of the conversation that we have in this arena is about intervention, and definitely intervention is needed. However, wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great? It is the vision, I think, of most crisis centers, the vision of most criminal justice systems, that it would be really great if we could decrease the numbers and if we could just get rid of the numbers, period. So let's share with us the definition of primary prevention and why it's important.
Yeah, so when I talk about primary prevention, I really just think about how are we changing the culture in order to create one in which domestic and sexual violence does not occur. So it really looks at what are the root causes of domestic and sexual violence, what are our protective factors and our risk factors, and how do we begin to promote those protective factors, decrease those risk factors, and really start changing social norms so that those are ones that promote safety, equity, and acceptance for all people.
Awesome. And I just wanted to highlight you as you are giving, because I'm considering this to be a presentation to the community. So I just wanted you to be highlighted. And so one of those tools, because there's different curriculums out there, there's different, strategies and to do primary prevention. And one that you shared with me last week that the Bridge has been working on, I believe, for maybe about a year or two, is the close to home. So share what is close to home.
Of course, yes. So Close to Home is a community organizing approach to primary prevention of domestic and sexual violence. So it was a program founded in Massachusetts in early 2000s. About 2000 was when people in Massachusetts, survivors, advocates, police officers, government officials, family, friends came together and started having conversations that what are we going to do? Because what we're currently doing is not working. We are not reducing the rates of domestic and sexual violence. How can we begin to make changes? And so they literally started off going door to door. knocking on doors saying, hey, this is what we're doing. We recognize domestic and sexual assault is a problem in our community. How do you feel about this problem? Are you interested in learning more about it, about getting involved? And they very quickly found that there was an overwhelming response of, yes, we want to get involved. We know this is a problem. Let us know what we can do. And so Close to Home really looks at those of us who are considered experts in the field. There's not enough of us to create social change. There's not enough of us to really change a culture, right? And so, but there are enough individuals in community. And so if we came together in community, because our community, they know the issues that happen in their community best. They are the experts. And so how do we begin partnering, literally working with, allowing communities? We give assistance, we give support to communities in order to work on this issue and to begin changing these social norms, begin promoting the protective factors. And so it really does believe this philosophy of communities understand their own strengths, their own areas of growth, and how we can tackle these issues together. We cannot do it alone as sexual assault and domestic violence organizations.
And I want to do a deeper dive here. You just said protective factors. And so when we talk about primary prevention, we have what's called the risk factors and the protective factors. So do a drill down on that for that, maybe that educator that's watching, that clergy person that's watching, about what it means when we talk about risk factors and protective factors.
Of course, definitely. And for Close to Home purposes, we really are focusing on promoting the protective factors, because in promoting protective factors, in turn, will reduce risk factors. So when we look at protective factors, there are 4 large ones when we think about domestic and sexual violence. So protective factors are things that are promoted within individuals, within communities, within groups, that if we have these skills or tools, it's much less likely that violence is going to occur. So there's 4 that we focus on. One is promoting empathy. So if I am an empathetic individual, I am going to care if someone is hurt, and I am not going to want to hurt that individual. Next one is a sense of connectedness, not only to others, but to my community. If I feel connected to other people, if I have positive relationships, if I feel seen, heard, valued, not just by my family or by my friends, but by my community as a whole, then I'm much less likely to harm individuals in my community because I care about it. I am a part of it, and I care about the individuals in my community. Next is going to be conflict resolution, right? And we've been talking about this for such a long time, is how do we have healthy conflict? How do we have arguments with people? How do we discuss our opinions and feelings and thoughts in a way that is respectful and hears everybody out, that is in a way that is not violent? So many of us grew up in homes where conflict was violent, communication was violent, it was harmful, it was dismissing, it was demeaning, it was one where respect was not given to all parties, where people really they listen to respond instead of listen to understand one another. And so really looking at protective factors, how do we engage in this healthy form of communication and conflict? And lastly, it's going to be a belief in gender equity. And we got to push that a little bit, a belief in equity, period. And not just gender equity, but racial equity. We want to think about how are we creating equitable spaces, communities for all individuals of all identities, where everyone has access to resources, to acknowledgement, to love and respect, safety. That is not the current society that we live in right now. And so Close to Home really looks at how can we begin to really promote and push these protective factors within our communities, with the community leading the way, not us. When we talk about risk factors, these really look at kind of these root causes of sexual and domestic violence, and there's huge long lists of them, right? And we look at risk factors on the individual, relationship, community, and societal level. Like I said, if we were to spend a much longer period of time, we could really break these down in depth. But overall, when we think about risk factors, we think about root causes of domestic and sexual violence, we're talking about a society that is founded on oppression, right? We're looking at the isms. We're looking at patriarchy. And so when I say isms, I don't just mean sexism, but racism, ableism, classism, heterosexism, ageism, adultism, right? We could talk for a very long time today looking at breaking all of those down. We're also looking at male entitlement and the idea that women are supposed to be submissive. And some of these ideas may say, whoa, those are traditional and we don't believe those anymore. But it's so interesting because we do this exercise called the gender box. I've been doing it for many years now. And adults are still surprised that middle schoolers are still saying the same kind of, traditional gender expectations for men and women that I would list, or my family members would list. And so risk factors really look at what's going on in society that promotes a rape culture or a culture of violence, one that is not respectful and one that does not promote safety for all people.
So yeah, this could actually be a series.
Yes.
And I think that's why it's so important to get this type of information out, to encourage people to start having these types of conversations, because I think that so many times, the reality is that domestic violence and sexual violence advocacy is not only about the intervention piece. It is about unlearning the things that support these crimes. And we are talking about a crime. We're not talking about boys will be boys. We're not talking about, relationships that are just bad. We're talking about a crime, and that there are behaviors that exist in our society. There are beliefs that exist in our society that support these crimes, and not knowingly, right? It's unconscious. And I think the programs that you are facilitating and your team are facilitating are to help people to dig up those unconscious beliefs that support these types of crime. And so taking it into a community-based level, share with us some of the aspects of close to home. What exactly is close to home, and what have been some successes that you have had with this project?
Definitely, yes. So close to home technically has 4 different phases that you walk through, and you don't necessarily have to stick with the order of the phases. And also the unique thing about close to home is you can go back, you can go backwards. There's nothing wrong with, we kind of went quickly through this phase. We want to go back, or now we've learned more and we want to take a step back. So this first phase is the assess phase, where you get to know your community in a whole new way. You look at it in a new light, and we really want to focus on the strengths of the community and go from a strengths-based perspective when we look at tackling issues like sexual and domestic violence in a community. So what we did to start from the beginning with this assess phase is we started having many more conversations. So we met with more community organizations. We work specifically with the city of South Houston and then the surrounding areas within Pasadena for our program. We want to focus in on a small area and then widen from there. And the goal is that the community itself will take over, that eventually they won't need us and to assist them, that we can move to a different community. So like I said, begin in this assess phase, have individual interviews. We held focus groups with people who are from the community. We created surveys, both in English and in Spanish, surveys for adults and then surveys for young people. Mm-hmm. And we gave those out and through multiple different mediums or forms, through online, through putting them in schools, through putting them at the community center, at a hip hop dance school. We talked to different healthcare professionals and had them assist us with asking people to take the survey. We gave out gift cards and incentives for, if you fill out the survey, enter a chance to win a gift card. Your feedback is appreciated. And in the survey, we asked questions about, what do you love about your community? Who do you admire in your community? We wanted to identify some leaders in the community so that we could begin partnering with them. Where are spots that you feel safe in the community? How do you do you think sexual violence happens in your community? Do you think sexual violence is a problem? So we had some short answer questions. We had a lot Likert scale questions to make it a little bit simpler. And one interesting thing we found was that the community, almost everyone thought, yes, sexual and domestic violence is a problem, but not here in our community. And also, we found that the South Houston community, what they want most, because we asked them, what do you look for in your future? What do you want? If you could have anything, what would that be? And they said more community events here in South Houston. And so that is one of the things that we started with first. We thought, perfect. We want people to get to know us. We want people to join us in this work. And so what we first started doing was, taking what we've learned and started organizing community events, and reaching out to individuals in the community to join us to plan and host those events. So with that assess phase, you also begin organizing what's called a network team. So your network team is those key community members who want to be walking this path with you to host this program. So we have a group of about 9 of us right now who meet every single week. And we meet at 8:00 at night on a Tuesday, because that's when we're all available to meet. So we meet virtually for an hour, hour and a half every single week. And in the beginning, they were the ones to help us build our evaluation tools, assess our data with help from a statewide coalition with assessing the data. And then with their help, we've moved into this second phase of Close to Home, which is the talk phase. So the talk phase is where we get with our network team and we talk about, okay, this is what we've learned from our surveys. This is what South Houston sees as issues in their community, strengths. Here's how they think we can begin solving this issue. So as our network team, what can we begin doing? So they assist us in planning our events. They really are the ones. We want to host this event. Here's where we think we should do it. Here's what we should focus on. Or we want to hold a storytelling session. So in that talk phase, it's really important to begin having conversations. And we didn't start on, hey, what does sexual violence mean to you, right? We didn't start there. So one of our first events was a meditation event at a park in the community where it was a self-care event. Come, let's meditate. Let's do some deep breathing. We held a tie-dye party and gave out tacos. We held a storytelling session on body image and self-esteem, because our Close to Home members talked about, in our community, girls and women, we have really poor self-esteem. We talk all the time about how, and we're also afraid to show our body. We don't feel proud of our bodies. And so we were able to have conversations, a storytelling session just on that. And it was incredibly powerful. We had a storytelling session just on what is a toxic relationship. So conversations that weren't so intensive in the beginning, right? And we still haven't moved to just focusing on sexual and domestic violence, because really we're trying to work on the protective factors, promoting community connectedness, enhancing empathy, just finding new ways to be in community together that promotes safety. So that's really what we've been spending a lot of our time on. After the talk phase, that's your second phase of Close to Home, then you move into the build phase. So this is when you really start widening your network. So you have your original network team. Your network team begins bringing other individuals on through our events. We, of course, have sign-in sheets. Please let us know if you're interested in learning more. Sending out emails, having conversations in the community. So we're currently building up our coalition, if you will, of community members who aren't necessarily able to meet every week, but still want to be a part of our movement and still attend our events and want to learn what can we do more. So I know that one thing that one of our network team members is really passionate about is voter rights. And a lot of people may think, well, what does this have to do with domestic and sexual violence? But what we found was in the most recent local election of South Houston is that only 6% of the population voted. And so when we think about local government and, the impact that those laws, those policies have on communities can be huge. And so how can we, our network team is currently thinking about, can we set up a project team that just focuses on enhancing voter participation in South Houston. And this would also enhance a sense of connectedness to your community if you feel like your voice matters when it comes to policies within your local government. That gives you a sense of agency, right? So there are so many different things that we've done. But like I said, going back to that build phase. So that build is when you begin really working on your projects, your initiatives. And then is your action phase, is your last phase. And that's when you really begin releasing all of if you have different campaigns, if you have different projects you're working on, that's when that action takes place. And like I said, the really cool thing about close to home is we could at any moment go back and decide, you know what, we have more questions now that we've done more work. Let's go back to that assess phase, or let's take a step back and go back to talk phase. And so we're actually going to have our network teams retreat. We're going to have our retreat coming up here soon. Mm-hmm. And we're really going to look at what are these projects that we want to release. I know that one of our network team members is really passionate about having close to home, having their own social media Instagram page, so that they, as a group, they can begin getting the word out and changing the culture through social media. Because it is a very powerful tool for activism right now, especially for young people. And so that's one of the things we're going to start looking at.
Wow. Well, that's a lot and could definitely go a lot deeper. I love the part about the voter registration, because I think one of the things that has actually come up here on the HCDVCC Connects is that when we've had survivors come and comment, that they will often talk about different laws, and sometimes not even realizing that there's a law about something. And the reality is, when we talk about the primary prevention piece and looking at the societal piece, is that that's where we can do some accountability. I can remember when I first started doing this work, and I can't remember what year it was exactly, but there wasn't always the ability to get an order of protection for teens and same-sex relationships. And I remember when that piece of legislation came out, and those things occur as a direct result of people getting engaged and actually going and talking to their representatives. And, we've just come out of a legislative session, and so we'll be going into another one in 2023. So, I'm excited about the work that you are doing in the community, because you can then prepare people and educate them so that they can begin to have an impact on the 2023 legislative session, right?
Yes.
There's been laws, I think, in the latest legislative session, that there has been laws to strengthen laws around the economic abuse that occurs to survivors of domestic violence. We know about 99% of those experience domestic violence. And so during this last legislative session, there have been laws to help to strengthen what survivors how they can be protected. And so again, those things don't happen unless people are engaged in the process, letting their legislators know what they have need of. And I think just even recently something came up, saw something in a news story, and that people are starting to talk about, is what happens when a survivor unfortunately is killed, and the abuser has the right as to what happens with the remains. And I think that that's a conversation that's going to be had. And for those people in the community who say, we've lost a loved one to domestic violence, and we couldn't move forward with how we wanted to celebrate her or his life because it was the abuser, because they were married, that they had a say in how that happened. And so that's a conversation that needs to be had. So very exciting about the work that you are doing. Well, the 30 minutes goes by really quickly.
It sure
did. So in closing, what message would you want to share with those who are watching now? And if you are watching now and you have a question, please feel free to pop it in. We can go about 5 minutes over if you have something that you want to join the conversation, because the whole point of this is to connect with our community and to bring experts in, to bring our community partners in, to have a conversation with you. This is a conversation. So if there's something you want to put in the chat box, please feel free to do that. However, as we are starting to wrap up, a message that you want to put out there to those who are watching now and to those who may watch the replay about close to home?
I would just say that there is hope. I know a lot of people feel like, wow, looking at the world, it is horrific, right? The violence happens on the daily, and I think close to home reminds us that there is hope for change. There is a hope for a different future, a future that is not violent. And so I guess I want to part with that I believe there is a future without violence. I believe that for our future generations. And literally everyone can get involved. You don't have to have a particular skill. If this is something that you're interested in, please email me, call me. We can have a conversation on what you can do to get involved in this movement. So thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you. And so I put Jessica's information down there at the bottom, Jessica Bellant, and you can reach her at jbellant@tbotw.org. And if, I don't know what the future plans are. However, if you are wanting to partner with them, maybe 22, 23 to bring maybe close to home. And as I say that, Kathy Jo. Hi, Kathy Jo. Thank you for joining us. She asked, are you partnering with other community nonprofits?
Yes. So right now, we've mostly been partnering with the library here in town. With I don't know if you've heard about Break Free. They're a hip hop dance school. We've been partnering with them for programming. The Southeastern Community Center we partner with as well. So Kathy Jo, please reach out to me. We want to get everyone involved, not just individuals, but organizations as well. So awesome. Please reach out. I'd love to talk to you.
And Ms. Jo, if you don't mind, would you mind sharing your nonprofit? Because again, people come back and watch the replay. And again, I'm just going to keep reiterating, the whole idea of HCDVCC Connects is to connect people together, no matter where they are in Houston and Harris County and even beyond, because as I've been planning the shows for the upcoming year, we're going to start reaching out beyond Houston. So definitely, if you want to share your nonprofit, and please get in contact with Jessica. So she is Echoes of Hope. Okay, Echoes of Hope. I like that little play on words right there. I like that. So definitely, it's a women's shelter. Oh, where are you located, Ms. Jo? And we'll wait for her to put the response in there. And so again, that is the whole reason that we're here. So a women's shelter, Echoes of Hope. So we'll definitely be looking that up, and maybe she'll put in the chat box exactly where it's located. So, Sunnyside. Shut the front door. Okay. Excellent. And here's the thing, Jessica, is that there are so many people out here that are doing things that we have no idea that they're doing them. Yeah. And again, that's where the collaboration is, that if we all stop working in silos, that we can get so much more done. Because here's the reality. The challenge of doing this work is that there's never enough money. Mm-hmm. Because we started literally at the bottom, and we haven't even, I don't think, reached midpoint. That yes, that there is more funding that is coming through. And unfortunately, as a result of COVID, that we are starting to see more funding. People are starting to have this conversation more. However, in the 6 years that I've been here with HCDVCC, my level of awareness has raised. I'm like, oh my heavens, I had no idea that this many people were doing this work. Mm-hmm. And so there's so many people, just like Ms. Jo, who are out there doing the work. And many of them have not been in a position where they can even get access, sometimes to the funding that they need. Whereas if they can collaborate with a larger organization, that there could be so much more done. Now, everything isn't going to be a fit. Everything isn't going to be a connection. However, it's nice to know that you have options. And that's the whole idea, is that people have to have options, and there has to be that opportunity to collaborate. So don't know what the outcome will be, but definitely, Ms. Jo, please get in contact with Jessica. Again, you see her information there at the bottom. Have a conversation. Sometimes it's a fit, sometimes it's not. However, we don't know unless we explore the options. That's right. So it looks like you're a nonprofit. I think less than 3 years. So they've been in operation less than 3 years. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining in today. I hope today's program was of value for you, Ms. Jo. And we will not be on next Monday in observance of Martin Luther King Day. However, we will be back the following week. And the next 2 shows, we're going to be addressing human trafficking, and also we will have someone coming in who's an expert on working with the faith-based community, the faith-based community. So please stay tuned and share. We're here every Monday, except for holidays, and getting information out. And again, starting to bring in people from outside of Texas, just so that we can have a more diverse view of what's happening, because there's people all across the world who are doing some amazing things, and we want to start hearing from them in 2022. So with that, we are at 5 minutes over. Again, thank you, Ms. Joe, and everyone else who has come on today to watch. Please go back and watch the replay, and we will see you on the 24th. I'm trying to look here and see who my guest is going to be on the 24th, because I want to say it's the city of Houston. I believe we have the city of Houston that will be here, and they'll be talking about their human trafficking initiative. And then on the 31st, we will have Julie Owens, who will be sharing about her work in the faith-based community to raise awareness about domestic violence, doing prevention as well as intervention. And with that, we come to a close, and it's always a pleasure to talk with you, Jessica. Thank you so much for the work that you and your team are doing in Southeast Harris County and beyond. And with that, we bid you adieu. Everybody have a great
Thank you, everyone.